Welcome, everybody, to Mongols. This is sort of a hybrid show where we're going to talk a little bit about the Hounds' loss to Lou City and also talk a little bit about their upcoming match against North Carolina. I am Mike. Joining me in this one is Mondo and Justin. Mondo, how's it going?
It's going okay. I'm glad my life outside the Hounds is good.
Yeah, that's fair. Justin, how's it going?
Yeah, good here too. Really not enjoy Wednesday night whatsoever. The last night I got to sit and watch Argentina and Canada, which was an enthralling soccer game. And so, yeah, really enjoyed that game. So, kind of revived soccer in some way, a little bit for me. So, glad Copa America's here.
I was going to say, you have Copa America, you have the Euros. There's lots of soccer to watch in these sort of down times for the Hounds. Guys, let's get right into it because this is probably going to be a little bit longer than some of our other shorter episodes just because we are going to be talking about sort of two games, two different sets of circumstances, things like that. First game up, Hounds lost 1-0 to Lou City at Highmark on Wednesday night, Justin, as you had mentioned. I think that there were some positives from this game. I don't know if we should start with let's start with the negatives and then we can segue into the positives so that we end this game on sort of a happier note. Mondo, give me a takeaway here.
I have never seen such a biased referee. I'm gonna start right there because I have never seen a player in all of my years of playing or watching soccer. I've never seen a player do what that Louisville City player did and get to stay on the pitch. Actually, sorry, get to stay in the stadium. Forget on the pitch. That's a straight red anywhere else.
Yeah.
For anyone else. And that just I cannot get over that. That was a red card. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Like
essentially what had happened was I think it was Harris got involved, got his legs tangled up with one of the Hounds players, and the ref blew the whistle as the ref was walking over. Harris wasn't paying attention, turned and kind of like smacked the ref on the shoulder, like sort of made him pivot almost. And you could tell the ref was just like, whoa. And then like took a hot second to think about it.
He got in the ref's face too.
Yeah.
He was like immediately in the ref's face yelling about the foul. And it's like, dude, you like that 2 strikes in the span of 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, come on. No. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, you had that. You had sort of 2 different instances where I think it was EJ was taken down in the box. There were no calls there. We had some conversation about Biasi getting sort of the second yellow that led to a red. Justin, you had some thoughts on that. Do you think that was a fair second yellow?
No, it's if he's the last defender on the way back and he pulls a shirt like that, sure, it's a yellow. But this was in the middle of the field. There were players all around. You know, it's a shirt pull. The Louisville player didn't go down. It's not a breakaway. Like, it's a whistle and a free kick. Sure, absolutely. I have no problem with that being whistled with a free kick. But to give a yellow there, and especially a second yellow, like, I'm fine with a yellow being given if that's his first foul, but a second yellow for that little of a play, when you put all the other stuff together, EJ had gone down in the box twice, several other things have happened other than, Harris. And it's just, it's a bad call. It's a real bad call.
I'm going to add to that because, I mean, it would have been fine to have a bad call if it was consistent, right? And yet on the other side of things, we had a Louisville player chasing down through ball, and he literally had Kayet's shirt off. Like, I've never seen more of Kayet's torso than I did in that moment. And Biasi did not pull the shirt that much, like, so I have some major questions about that. Like, is it because we were the defender? Like, Kayet's the defender, Kaye is the defender being chased back, and so it's okay for the attacker to pull that much and not the defender? But again, that goes back to just if the ref had been consistently harsh, cool, I'm okay with that. If the refs had been consistently lenient, I'm okay with that. We didn't have the consistency.
Yeah. I have considered after this game was over, we put out sort of a little 30-second short on YouTube. It was a reel on Instagram, just like recapping the game with memes and things like that. And, some people I think took it as we were being intentionally negative. My plan is to do this after every game. So if we win, they will be positive as well. But I really considered going through and just doing one straight of the refs' calls and like
Oh,
being
yeah.
like, nope, that was a no call. And I was like, this is going to be much longer than a minute and it's going to take me far too much time. Like, I don't think it's going to be worthwhile and it's not going to change anything. But yeah, there was a lot, unfortunately. Justin, give me another takeaway.
Negative or where are we starting?
Let's go. We're
I
starting negative.
forgot.
Go
Yeah,
negative
yeah,
first.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, where do I want to go? Randolph ain't it. I don't know. This is not. He is not at the
Interesting.
level we need him to be at. And I, I'm, I'm, I'm trying to put it in perspective of like, hey, this season hasn't gone well, regardless of who's in it. So maybe it's just that. But I was not. Over the past 2 games, I've not been impressed, and so I'm ready to go back to. I'm ready to go back to either Prada or Dick. I don't care which one we go with, but I think I'm ready to go back to one of those. And it wasn't a. It wasn't. I'm actually not that negative about this game. I thought this game was fine, and we could talk about what I thought was fine about it. But um, you can't get beat on the toe poke from 25 yards out with not that much in your way. Like you've got to be a little bit more agile than that to be able to make sure you make that save. It wasn't that hard of a shot. I think the announcers later in the game revealed their bias because they're like wonder goal from whoever it was, and it's not a wonder goal. It's a toe poke from 25 yards out. You got to be able to stop that. And so I was pretty frustrated with that. I was pretty frustrated with him, and just not good.
It's interesting that you say that because now listen, I haven't looked at any stats or anything like that, but considering all of the goalkeeper back and forth and discussion and whatever, I was prepared to come into this episode and just say, just keep riding Randolph. Like from the game in Hartford, where he, clearly he was hung out to dry, but he also looked a little bit shaky. To the beginning of this game, he definitely looked a little shaky. Like Susan actually said at one point, she was like, he looks like nervous, like he's new. I felt like he kind of grew into the game. And there were some saves that he made. There were times he came out and made plays that I was like, there might be something there, but the only way he's ever going to grow and develop is if he just keeps getting chances. And my thought was, if we can see at least some progression between 2 games, then what does, another game give him, or where could he land after a few more games compared to what we already know that Gabby and Dick are? But I'm also willing to be wrong. This is one of those revolving door kind of things where it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So
I
yeah.
kind of the caveat I throw into that conversation, I guess, is just where is like with the level of expertise, right? It's this is his second professional start. Whatever. I'm fine with
Right.
that. And so I look at it and I go, okay, if you are our second professional start, can he look back at the Hartford game and go, yeah, I know what I did wrong in those goals. I should have been out further. Could have been more agile. Could have. Did he know what he's doing wrong? Or is Bushy in his ear going, hey, this is what you did wrong on those goals. Here's what you can do to improve. And that's helping to build his confidence. I think my guess would be someone like Dick, who has had the professional experience, who has played a lot of games at a USL or MLS Pro, whatever. He has had the games. He can probably look at his own gameplay and go, "Yeah, I know what I did wrong. I need to fix it for this. If, whatever." And so I'm just making sure. Like, I just want to make sure. Like, does he know what he's done wrong, or are we just getting lucky that he's given up 3 goals in 2 games, and you can kind of okay, he is improving a little bit. So then, what is it like going forward? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think for your point of like, hey, do you just keep riding it and just see what happens because of the revolving door type situation? I'm probably okay with that too. I'm actually probably okay with that. I'm not sure with the way our defense is. I'm not sure that anybody is good enough in that, short of a Zach Steffen situation where you're bringing somebody in on
Right.
loan who is way better than should be in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But
I
who knows?
mean, better yet, I think this is something that a team who's used to being at the top can have a problem with, is like when you do have younger players coming in, you forget that they need that time. They need a
Sure.
little bit of cooking time. And we're used to somebody really strong in between the sticks. And you know what? If we take a season where we ship more goals than we should have, just so we have a very, very, very good keeper in the years going forward, I don't mind one season where we give up a ton, or even maybe 2 seasons where we give up a ton of goals. That being said, it's a lot easier when you're scoring goals on the other end to make up for it. And that's a separate problem. But I don't mind having a lot of the season be learning in a couple key skill positions, just so we have strength going forward. I'm and at this point in the season, I'm also willing to like sacrifice maybe a little bit of results this season to have a stronger next season.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to sort of see, because I think the other thing that will this game against North Carolina will be very telling, because Randolph got the start on the weekend. He got it midweek. And so if the thought was that Lily's trying to rest a keeper, which I don't fully understand the concept of resting a keeper. I mean, unless you're playing back to back days, like you don't need to rest the keeper. But if he ends up getting the start this weekend against North Carolina, then that leads me to think that the other two are sort of in the doghouse and he's just going to try to ride them for a little bit. If he puts in somebody else, then we're back to sort of square one of just like, who are you picking? And we know that there hasn't been a lot of days of practice in between, so it's not like you could say, oh, this one had the hot hand in practice. It's just, this feels very administrative at this point. So we'll see what happens this weekend. One of my negatives is we have now played over 300 minutes without scoring a goal, which is not good. I will caveat that with, I felt that the addition of Musha Galusa, who we can talk about, I think, as a positive, at least gave us some signs of life of an attack. We were able to attack in ways that we hadn't been previously. There was much more through balls up the middle and letting the guys run. And he was more willing to sort of take chances and shots and kind of figure things out. I wonder how much of that was him being added midweek and there being sort of this naivete about how the Hounds offense runs. Like he didn't have enough time to sort of distill what Lily wants him to do. So he was just being him. So we'll sort of see how that plays and evolves. But yeah, we're just not going to win games if we can't score goals. And I know that this has been in the players' heads. We've talked to them on and off the field. They're feeling this pressure. I don't know how you release this pressure and start scoring goals, but if you can't score goals, you can't win. It's that simple. So like they've got to figure something out. And our set pieces have been putrid. Literally, we had the one that was like just outside our own 18, and everybody set up, and Kenny tried doing like a trick play, like passing it around the one defender, and the defender just intercepted it and they went the other way. And it's that, and it's corner kicks, and like none of them have been good enough. So something needs to happen there if we want to have any shot of sort of making the playoffs, in my opinion. What else? Do you guys have any other negatives before we sort of swing into the positives?
I'm gonna call out one player. I'm gonna
Okay.
call out one player, and I'm gonna say this is the worst showing we've seen from Bradley Sample all season.
That was not the player I thought you were going to mention. So go ahead. Tell me why.
So I'm used to Bradley being like, he's a very consistent player. He's solid in midfield. He's good forward and backward. Like he gets involved on both sides, right? His distribution this game was just lacking. It would I he passed more often to the other team, or the ball from his feet ended up at the other team's feet more often than it did somebody on our team. So I think this is part of, it may not have just been his fault. It could be because Louisville definitely did like an overload the midfield situation, and I think our midfielders were not prepared for that at all. But I just wanted to call out, like, he has been on a constant upward trend, and this was like a step backwards that I wasn't expecting. Like, he was definitely a player that's like, okay, I can see him being involved more and more week over week. And so, Sample, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Please take this constructively. But I, like, maybe I'm holding you to too high a standard, but, like, what I mean to say is, like, he just had a bad day at the office, and that happens to everybody.
In my opinion, a few others that had a really bad day. I thought both Kizza and Sterling. Kizza had two plays essentially. One was a ball that came across that he pretty much got a clean header on, and he didn't even hit it hard enough to get it to the goal. It kind of like bounced into the keeper's hands. And then there was another chance late in the game where the ball was kind of on his foot, and rather than making a play, he just kind of like kicked it 10 yards wide of the goal and out of bounds. And it was just like, what's going on here? And Sterling, it felt like he was just kind of phoning it in at the end. There was a moment, especially where they were kind of doing like a 1-2, and Etu gets the ball and plays the through ball, and Sterling had already given up on the play and was just walking. And you could see Etu was like, what do you do? Like, go. Like, this is where we're going. So it'll be interesting because I do think that the combination of EJ and Musha Galusa sort of gave us a little bit of something different in the attack. So ideally, I'd like to see them start this next one as well. The problem is that if you're just going to sub those other two on late in the game when you're trying to get a goal, we haven't got goals from them this season. So like I don't have any confidence that they're going to come in and be game changers. So
I don't
Justin,
know.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Mondo.
I was gonna say, I don't know what combination of those four we need up there, because I mean, we haven't seen what Sterling is capable of. We kind of know he's he's been here for a bit. Musa's new, and EJ has yet to really crack the shell, but we kind of know what we got with EJ as well. So I don't know what combination of those four we need up front. But I think Musa's definitely, from just this one game, Musa's earned that starting spot out of the four of them. So I don't know who you partner with him up there, but he and maybe we need a little bit of Musa being Musa over playing Lily Ball. Maybe we need a little bit of that, a little bit of new ideas, because that's actually one of my top points was, what is going on with this attack? I love it. Like, that is what I wrote in my note. Like this is the most attacking attack I've seen.
Yeah.
And sorry, not to cut you off, Justin, but
no, you're fine.
Yeah, no,
Justin, do you have any thoughts about any of those players that we just mentioned, or do you disagree with anything we just said?
No. I think my thing. I would honestly, in this next game, love to see the Riverhounds shift to like a 4-4-2 with a diamond midfield, and put Sterling at the top of the diamond with EJ and Musa running ahead of him. I
Hmm.
feel like I feel like being three of them on the field at one time would create a little bit of chaos that we probably need. And I feel like trying to, but if you're gonna go next game, I mean, I think Musa and EJ didn't do anything in this game would tell me they shouldn't start the next one. And I think, Monday, you said we know what we have in EJ. He's played like before this. He played like 159 minutes or something like that, and we don't know what we have because we haven't seen him start games other than the first game of the season and then this game. And so if that's going to be what we have of him, I want him starting more games. So I really think like I would love to see I would love to give Sterling a run out at the 10 and see what he can do with two guys ahead of him, where he's not having to, and I think what we got from EJ and Musa was height and the ability to hold the ball up that
Yeah.
we haven't seen at all this year, with Kizza and Sterling, because they just don't have the height and they don't have strength to get on the ball and hold it up and let guys run past them and all that kind of stuff. And so if you put Sterling at 10 and you got two guys who either can get in behind or they hold the ball up and let Sterling run past them. Um, I love it. That's what we do for the next game, even if it's not a formation shift, but figuring out a way to get those guys on the field with whether it's Sterling, Forbes, whoever running past them and scoring goals. I think we could do something with that. But I was just glad that we saw a total shift in the striker
Yeah,
position this time, and that was for me a really good thing.
agreed.
I'm I'm gonna add to that. I'd love to even see a 4-3-3. Like,
Yes, yes.
just enough of this five back stuff. I don't think our five back situation is working well for us. It's definitely
Well,
not helping us on defense. And the guys are too gassed to keep pushing forward because they have to, like, I mean, just watching both flanks run up and down the field the whole time, like they're gassed.
yeah.
And
That I was gonna say that kind of segues into like my last negative that I have. I don't know if you guys have any other ones, but Hounsey talked about this maybe 2 episodes ago. But the idea of Lily bringing a high schooler into a game when we're down 1-0 against the best team in the league and we're down a player and we were still chasing the game. We were still pressing the game, trying to score. And he's bringing in Pablo. And I have no issues with Pablo. This is not a Pablo out. This is very much a like, why are we making that decision in a game that is consequential where we could potentially score at that point in the game? Looking at sort of our list of subs, there was the Hogan Etu head collision thing that took Hogan out, and so therefore we essentially got one extra sub. But at the point that we put in Pablo, the other subs that we had on the bench were Dick and Asumanu. That was it. So we didn't have anybody else to put in. Um, but at 90 plus one, I think he took Etu out to put Pablo in. Okay, Etu's gassed. But I feel like for those last few minutes, we could have put in Asumanu and pushed Rovi further up the field or, push Blackstock further up the field. Just from a coaching standpoint, there's this line of I understand he wants to be supportive, he wants to give these guys minutes, but in a game like this, it feels like it's at the potential expense of points. And I don't know if I feel like that's the right call. Justin, how do you feel about that whole thing? Am I overthinking this?
No, I don't think so. I was actually just trying to figure out. I think for me, that decision actually goes back further than that, and it's like who do you have on the bench for this game?
Yeah.
Knowing that if you get into a close game, you might need to push and you might need to figure out how to score and how to get a goal and all that kind of stuff. And so my question then becomes like, all right, cool, that's the situation that you're in. And yeah, it's probably not ideal to put in the player that you put in. Like, it's not that's not the player that you want on the field. Um, but my question, I guess, would be you have Aiden O'Toole who has given some good minutes and is a good dribbler and all of that kind of stuff. He's not on the bench. You have Dragicic who also has put in some good minutes late in games, is a good dribbler with the ball. That kind of stuff. He's not on your bench. Where are the what did those guys do this week that made you feel like you couldn't put them on the bench and you decided to go with Luzon? And I think the problem with me for that is like Pablo is a guy you take on the road to Loudon. Like that's a guy you take on the road to Loudon. And if you're up in that game at the end of the game, then you put him on the field. And so Dragicic or O'Toole, those are guys you want on the bench in this game. To if you're trying to push and you're trying to, score a goal at the end of the game, you want to be able to put one of them on the. So I had a problem with roster selection, and but all that to say, had we put a couple of our chances away, whatever, Louisville doesn't score that goal, and you're in a 0-0 game, maybe it feels different that you put this guy on the field. So I don't know. It's all situational. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering. I guess my question would be: do you have the best guys in the 18 that you can every time? And yes, there is room for player development, but you got to pick your spots. And against the best team in the league is probably not your.
Well, and to your point, if you want to talk about player development, Dragicic is somebody that also needs some player development. But when I talked to Robbie Mertz about him last week, Robbie said everyone is going to be really surprised by how good this guy is. And he is much further along in his player development because he went through and played college. He's had that experience, whereas Pablo's still in high school. So, like, if you're going to give somebody minutes, like maybe his Dragicic, the other hometown kid that you give the minutes to because he's further along in his professional career, Pablo's still going to go to college. He's still going to do all of that, and he's not going to be with the organization. But who knows? Maybe this is a case where, the guys that you mentioned were injured and we never get told that. So who actually knows what's happening? Mondo,
I
do you have any
mean,
thoughts on this topic?
we also had Walty sit not even
Yeah.
in the lineup. And like, you want to talk about a player who could have slid in like that again. You put Walty in, you push Rovey up, or you leave Rovey where he is, and you let Walty push up. Like, he's the same, like that same style of player who could influence a game, and we've seen him do it in college. He did it in MLS Next Pro. Like, that's what he does, and he was left off the 18. So the question is, why are I guess maybe the bigger question is, why are the players that we are expecting to see more that maybe seem to be a little bit better, why are they not being put in the lineup?
Yeah.
Like, why are they just not there? And I'm also going to add to that, the first non-injury / concussion sub was Kenny. I think Bob was out bobbed because I'm going to go back to calling out Sample. Kenny was making things happen. Sample was tripping over his own feet. To me, I say, Kenny, I'm going to need more out of it. I know you're older, but I'm going to need more out of your tank. And hey, Sample, you're going to come out, and I'm going to put, because that's kind of what you have to do, right? Is you keep the guys in who are doing well, and you take the guys out who aren't doing so well. Like, that's kind of your first subs. And I know it's a tough situation with Kenny being older, but I think we've seen Kenny do almost a full 90 this season, and he definitely has it in him still. Like he's not so old that he can only do a half, right? Like, he's definitely got 90 in him. And does that mean he doesn't get to play this weekend? Sure, but is it worth taking points from Louisville to do that? Absolutely it is. Because then we get to brag about Louisville. You came to our house. What happened, right? We did the same thing to Detroit. Detroit came home, and we said, suckers, and Detroit was fiery hot. Like, they were lava. And it just, Bob got out bobbed here almost. Like,
I think my concern is the number of times that phrase has come up over the past few weeks too is at a level that we haven't said previously. So I don't think I'm anywhere near the Lily out sentiment.
no.
But this definitely does feel a little bit different than previous seasons where even talking to Robbie again, he said the level of play across the league has gone up. There are no easy games anymore. Like it used to be a few years ago, you could like pencil in 3 points with certain teams. Now that the number of teams that you could do that against is dwindling. And frankly, we're starting to fall into that category, assuming we can't put balls in the net. So, yeah.
I mean, I'll add to that. A lot of the coaches now in the league have worked with or played against Bob a lot. And so a lot of, and that actually says a lot more about Bob than I think anything else. Like, that, to Bob's credit, a lot of the coaches in this league have worked with Bob. That is amazing. But now this is master versus apprentice. Like, we've had that situation. That was Hartford, right? Hartford's head coach was once, and so we're seeing that, master versus apprentice thing more and more in more and more games.
Yeah. Let's flip this to some positives. Justin, you implied you have a positive. Do you have a positive here for this one?
I mean, overall, the whole game, the whole 90 minutes was actually a pretty good showing. And I think we can get frustrated with not getting points, all that kind of stuff. You put it out there. I think overall, over the course of 90 minutes, we deserved a draw. And, did we score a goal? No. And are we do we need to? Yes. But I think I think coming out against, two like we played to the best in the league over the last two, games and or last 2 weeks essentially. And I feel like we've put pretty good showings out there. Like we've played pretty good games. And unfortunately we haven't got points from them. And I think to me that shows good things. And and I think this scoring drought just needs to break at some point in time because once again, we talk about it, we had chances in this game. And, the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the game, it did look like playing a player down. Like
Mm-mm.
we were pushing, we were pressing, we were playing like, all that kind of stuff. And so does another player on the field help out with problem? But can we take some positives and say, hey, we played fairly well over the course of 90 minutes and toe to toe with the best team in the league? Yeah, we did. We kept a team that has scored 3+ goals a game for this whole season to 1 goal. And so I'd say, I hope that the guys are taking a lot of confidence from this game to say, hey, we went toe to toe, best team in the league, and can we take that into North Carolina and play another good game? And does at some point do the floodgates open? Who knows?
Fair,
Oh,
Mondo. Do you have any positives from this one?
I I completely agree with Justin. Like this was a game where, again, we have faced a lot of teams when they're hot, and it seems to be our fate to face teams when they're hot this season. But we also took the team who looks like they're going to be taking the title at the end of the season, at least for the Eastern Conference, and we had their number for most of the game. Which is not easy to do. That's and I don't think, like I said earlier, I don't think our attack has ever looked better. I really like Musa. I think I want to see him out there again. I'd love to see him and EJ just starting. I guess really. I want them to get more minutes because clearly there's good on this. There's good on our team. We have tons of talent. There's no reason we should have as few points as we do, except for the fact that the ball won't go into the goal. Like that's really, that seems to be our baseline problem, and it can't last forever. Also, Danny almost had the goal this season.
Yeah.
Like that would have been just beautiful. So like we're setting up these moments that we're just centimeters, millimeters away from glory. And it can't stay this way. We can't, it something's got to give at some point, and the ball's got to go into the net at some point, right? So I think it's a matter of time, but also we have a lot of young talent on our team, and if we have to eat a poor year to become twice as strong next year, like heck, watch us next year score like 50 goals in the first 10 games or something stupid like that, right? Like if we have to suffer 1 year to have a great next year because all the components are there, and it just might be a thing of like getting that little bit more experience. It might be that thing of just like a little bit more, hey, this is what I did wrong this game, build it for the next. Like if this season just becomes a foundational year, which I mean kind of looks like it is, so be it.
I mean, I think my only concern with that approach is that we know that this is the first year that Lilly has kept the most players that he's ever kept in between years. So the mentality of like, let's set up this year for next year. If that's his actual plan, like, okay, great. But I'm also fully prepared to go into the offseason
And lose
knowing that
everybody.
Yeah, that we've kept like 3 people, and it's, Rovira, Griffin, and Mertz, and Kenny has now become a coach. And then like everybody else is replaced. And then you lose that mentality of a foundational year. So if that's the plan, I'm fully behind like taking a year and letting these guys develop. If our goal is to keep all of them, talking to I think it was Matt from Louisville, he said part of the reason why he thinks they're so good is because they keep so many people year over year. Some of the guys have been there 8 years, 9 years, and there's just that continuity. So even when you bring in new coaches every few years, you still have that base. We've never had that base besides like Kenny. And we're starting to establish that base with people like Griffin and Mertz and Rovira, but
And this
everyone
might
else
be
is
a
here
year
for
where we
2
get
and they're
more
gone.
of that base. Like that's the hope, right? So that's the hope I'm holding on to. I'm sometimes optimistic to a fault. I mean, yeah, we're halfway through the season. Last season, we were talking about this before the show. At this point last season, Detroit had 5 more points than we do right now. They had 19, but they still squeaked their way in on the last day to the playoffs. We can still do that. Like there's still hope. The saying used to be, "It ain't over till the fat lady sings," right? I know that's a bit of a dated saying, but that's basically the situation here. It's not over to the last minute, right? Like there's still plenty of time left in the season, and I'm seeing so much good on the field. It's only a matter of time until the results start showing that.
Well, listen, if it's going to happen, it's got to start happening soon. And sort of our next chance for it is when we travel up to take on North Carolina this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Just quick background: we played North Carolina 6 games ago to a 1-1 draw at Highmark Stadium. I think that was the game we were all at, and it was frustrating in the sense that it felt like we should have won it, and we just came out totally flat in the second half. Since that game, North Carolina have only played 3 games. We've played 6. They've played 3. They got a 4-0 win against Miami. They got a 2-1 loss against Louisville, and they got a 2-0 win against Monterey. So, essentially they've scored 8 goals in 3 games and only given up 1. During that span, both Conway and Anderson have gotten 2 goals each. So they have guys that can put balls in the back of the net. What are we thinking about this one, Justin? Do you have hopes and dreams for this one?
I don't know if I have hopes and dreams for it, but I would say, and I'm gonna say it, and then I'm gonna back off of it. This is a must-win game.
Mhm.
Is it a must-win game? No, but it but we have to cut the we have to end this streak at some point, right? And so you can sit here and you can say like, okay, we've like, no, this is not a must-win game. We don't need to win this game to make the playoffs or whatever else. Um, but I think at some point you got to figure out, okay, how do we end this streak of not getting points and not getting 3 points? And I think you're coming off of a loss against Charleston, a loss against Hartford, a loss against Louisville, and so like and the Charleston and Louisville games maybe even shouldn't have been losses necessarily the way you played the game, and so you got to figure out how to find a way to rise above all of that, to lean into Danny and Robbie and Kenny and okay, how do we go out and just get a win? Like, I don't care how you do it. Is it ugly? You get it in the 89th minute. I don't care how you get this one. You've got to figure out, and there's no better place to do that than on the road. If you can go on the road, you can get a win in somebody else's stadium with a lot of pressure on the situation, with Bob having been outcoached or outthought, or maybe he's even 2 in his head at this point, going, "How do we win this streak?" At some point, you just got to figure out how you go out and get a win. And I think this has to be the game that you do that because you let too many more slip by. And Danny kind of talked about it before this game against Louisville. You let too many more slip by, there's going to be fewer and fewer opportunities to get those points. And so I think they've got to figure out how to end the streak this weekend. And I think it has to come in this game.
It almost feels like this could be a trap game for North Carolina because they could kind of look at our results and be like, they're not really putting in a lot. We're at home. Maybe we sleepwalk through this one, and then the Hounds show up and give them some hell. Mondo, what are your hopes and dreams for this one? What are your thoughts?
I think Justin and I are on the same page here, and possibly reading from the same script a little more.
I swear I swear I didn't look at your notes. Like I
No, I know. This time I kept my note. No, but more seriously, like I think it's because we're both more optimistic guys, and like that's where this comes from. But I agree. Like I would love for this game to be. So my hopes and dreams are: I love this is the game that takes the pressure off, because I think that's what the team needs the most. Just talking to some of the players after the last game, like there's a ton of pressure there. It's getting frustrating, and as close as they are, it's a matter of time until that starts creating cracks, right? We need the moment where instead of getting cracks, we turn to diamond. And I think we're like right about at that point where it's going to be one or the other. And because we're midway through the season, I think between now and maybe 3/4 of the way through the season, we'll see whether or not we have diamonds or we've got something broken that needs a lot of repair. And I'm hoping for diamonds.
Fair enough. We know what our hopes are. Let's do an actual score prediction. Mondo, I'll start with you. How do you think this plays out?
I'm gonna say 2-1. The Hounds in stoppage to take the points home.
Justin, does reality match up with your hopes?
I don't know how I can realistically predict a Hounds win at this point in the season. It's like, here's what I'm hoping. Here's what I think is actually going to happen based on the results of what has happened over the past. I think my dream is a 2-1 Hounds win, and yeah, getting the second goal pretty late. I think would take a ton of pressure off the team. That they can come back on the plane ride feeling excited and ready to hit this next week with a lot of energy and a lot of, and so I hope that's the case. I hope that that's what happens, and that we can feel good after this game, at least for 2 hours or so after the game.
I think my hope echoes your guys' stuff. I think we're gonna give up a goal regardless, especially against a team that's put away 8 in the past 3. So if we're gonna win, it's gonna be a 2-1 win. But I'm also with you in that, like, how am I sitting here and predicting a win at this point? I think it's because we have to. Like, you gotta keep hoping for this team that they're gonna turn around and do
I don't
something.
think we have to, though. We don't have to. So here's why. Okay, so this goes back to like we have to hope for a win, right? You always hope, you always want to win. Realistically, we know it's going to be a long road for a win, right? But your heart's always going to win over your mind, right? So we're going to say a win because maybe we can put the good energy into the universe, and whatever soccer god we've upset will say, okay, I think they've done their penance. They're through with their punishment, and we could have a balancing of our scales here.
Is it bad that, as you said, soccer god, immediately my mind went to like Lily as this like ethereal like being that's like, okay, I've punished you all enough, you stupid fans. Like, now we're gonna turn around and start winning. Oh man.
No, that's
Yeah.
pretty much how I picture a soccer god. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my thing with this whole thing is just, hey, this season has been rough as a fan, and I think the reality is, as fans, no matter what the situation is, you've got to be hopeful that, like, this is just the difference between a fan and a journalist. As a journalist, you look at and you got to predict a 3-0 loss in this game because it's on the road. It's against a team who's hot. You're not doing so well. All that kind of stuff. You got to look at it objectively and say this is what happens. But as a fan, we get to sit here and be like, I love the Hounds, and I love watching the Hounds, and I always believe the best about the Hounds, and I think that they can get points from this game. Is it realistic? I have no idea at this point in the season if getting points on the road against North Carolina is realistic. But I want to feel that way. I want to feel good about this game, and then I want all those hopes and dreams to be destroyed when they lose. That's just the way I want to be as a fan. I don't want to go into a game feeling like, well, we're gonna lose again, so here's how we go forward. Because then if you win, it's like, great, we won. I want to go in and being like, we're gonna win this game, and then when we win, it's like,
Yeah.
we won the game. But and then it's all dreams destroyed when we lose.
It's the difference between rooting for your picks versus rooting for your team. So like we could
Yeah.
sit here and be like, I gotta be right. So at least I can say I was right. I don't care about being right. I just want the team to win. So like,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I get
Listen,
it.
if they want to win 5-0 now because we said 2-1, like
Yep.
love that,
All
Um,
means. All means.
yeah,
Go
like
ahead.
whatever you got to do, like if that makes you feel better, yeah, do it, Um like that's but I think the other thing is I will also take a mediocre season if we have wins off the field. And wins off the field would be re-signing a bunch of players, the growth of the fan base, the growth of Highmark Stadium, the growth of the the people.
A good name for the women's team.
Yeah. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
submitted one. I guess I can
Yeah.
give it now because it's past the competition. Bridge City
There you
FC.
go.
I like that one a little bit more than some of the other ones that I've been hearing.
I still think it should just be Riverhounds, but if they're
So we can
disregarding
save that.
I have other thoughts. Yeah.
I think we can save Riverhounds or Riverhounds. I still like my backup idea of because this is Pittsburgh and we apparently hate the French. It should be Riverhounds Femme, but instead of Femme, it should be Femi because it's spelled F-E. So we butcher another French word.
No.
But I think that would be saved for a Division 1 side, like a USL Super side. This is the Riverhounds because we have the Riverhounds in the championship. We have the Riverhounds in the USL. So our W League team gets a different name.
Well, we shall see. As it relates to this weekend, hopefully the guys can go and get 3 points, and we'll all be cheering. But yeah, that's what we think. As always, let us know what you think, guys. Any sort of final thoughts here before we wrap this one up?
Still Browns. I still love this team.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess there's no better way to end it. Go Hounds, and thanks everybody. We'll talk to you very, very soon.
This is the way.